What's going on, Captains? This is the first of many to come on the Walking Dead podcast. I'm Carson Eungard.
And I'm Habba.
So we're kind of starting pretty far into the season. This is second episode of season 4. It's kind of this show has kind of really picked up in the past couple seasons.
Yes, it has.
It's been a really good start to this second half of the season. We're starting to see the first episode showing what Rick and Carl are going through, and as well as Michonne. It's kind of cool to see them go back and show some past history.
And it's really cool to see how Michonne has evolved from having no emotions to becoming full of emotion. As at the end of last week's episode, as she saw Carl and Rick through the window. So I think that was pretty fascinating. We're starting to see more of her life as well.
To play off of that, another character showing some new emotion is Carl. Going through a lot, especially some anger and aggression towards his dad. I think that could play out in a negative way later on in the season. I'm not sure how it will.
But I also feel like Carl needed that moment when his dad was in the coma, that semi-coma, I guess. He needed that moment to kind of get his anger out, to get his feelings out. And I think after he got all of his anger out, he kind of realized that he needs his dad because he wasn't able to shoot him even though he thought he was turning there for a moment.
Yeah, I think it was kind of one of those things, you think you can do it, but then when you're put in the situation, you can act totally different. And so we're about to start the next episode in the second half of season 4. Hopefully we'll see something from Glenn and Maggie, maybe get the question answered of where is Judith, and hopefully to see Daryl and Beth. So we'll be tuning in again during the commercial breaks, so look forward to seeing some more here soon. Alright, so we just saw the first section, and so it's our first commercial break. First thing I would say is you get to see kind of Beth's outlook. I didn't even know the whole diary thing. That was pretty interesting to know. Seeing how she felt when they first got to the prison as opposed to the final days at the prison was kind of.
We also I think we get to see like an insight to her because this is one of the first times she's actually shedding some emotion beside the time when her dad was killed. So usually she's strong, but now she didn't see who was killed, but she had a little mental breakdown right there, and Daryl kept on continuing.
I feel like Daryl is kind of trying to somewhat distance himself. I don't think he wants to let her get too close, but they've also been together, probably a few days into this, it seems like, and knowing her back from the farm. So I feel like he's just worried about Beth, but he doesn't want to make it any worse than it already is.
I think eventually throughout the rest of the show tonight, we're going to see more inside of Daryl, because we really don't know him much from a background point of view. So hopefully he'll start to open up too, and these coming episodes might actually be getting us some more insight on the characters.
I think that is very true, because just seeing after the first episode with Michonne, seeing some background from her, and she, out of all the characters, I believe she was the one that we knew the least about outside of what we've seen her do. Another key scene I would like to bring up is when Beth and Daryl approach the railroad tracks after tracking for a couple hours, I guess. And they find several walkers feeding on what appear to be fresh bodies. So, assuming that they could be from the prison. So, and that is also the scene where we see some of Beth's emotion. So I feel that could somehow tie into what they're feeling. Is there any other survivors from the prison out there, or are they alone? So we'll get back to you on the next commercial break. So we'll see you here in a few.
We'll be right back.
Alright, so we're back after another clip, or another part of the show, and the next commercial break, and we had some big stuff happen in just that little portion. Judith is alive, and with Tyrese, and so are the two girls, Lizzie and her sister, so got a lot of clarification there, so that was good to see. And what else?
I think most importantly, the two sisters are going to stick together no matter what, and I feel like Tyrese almost owes him a favor for saving him back at the prison when he was about to get killed.
I think that Tyrese too is we kind of get to see a different side of him instead of the aggressive side. I think we're nurturing side. The scene where it's kind of cool to see the fact that what we just saw with Daryl and Beth, what they've seen, they're now following in Tyrese and the kids' steps, leading to this wherever the central location is going to be. And also Tyrese was, as in, as the scene goes, he hears some screams and he tells the two girls to stay there, and he goes off and he finds this group of people and they're getting attacked by walkers, and they all end up getting bit, and turns around and sure enough Carol is back after a long absence in the show from towards the beginning.
I also it was kind of funny to see her show up right there, because I feel like that was his hope right there. Because I think at that point he had lost all hope, because he heard the screams coming from the woods, but then he didn't know whether to try to save the old man or not. But once the old man had gone down, I feel like he was at that point he was about to turn around and go back to the girls. But then right there was Carol was his shining hope right there.
And another thing to bring up about Tyrese and Carol is the fact that Carol was the reason of her absence was she killed two people in the prison during the disease outbreak, which one of them happened to be Karen, which was Tyrese's girlfriend at the time. And when Rick took her away, when he got back to the prison, his plan was to tell Tyrese about Carol and what she had done. But then the fact that Tyrese wasn't back from the run yet for the medication, and then as soon as they get back, this explosion happens, or this big event happens with the governor, that he didn't.
Tyrese still doesn't know what happened, so it's going to be interesting to find out if that ever comes up in conversation, find out how his reaction is, because he was about ready to kill the person who killed his girlfriend. So we're going to soon find out what's going to happen if that does come up.
Yeah, so we'll get back to you on the next commercial break. Well, welcome back. Just had another section of the show. This part we get to see Bob, Maggie, and Sasha. They're all off on their own, and there's a little bit of, I would say, kind of a tension between them. Maggie kind of storms off wanting to go look for Glenn, and they don't necessarily want to. They want to stay together. So.
We also, at the end, when she does go off, Bob actually takes the whole group. I think he is the combining force, I guess, because they all seem to be following him. They're going by what he is saying, I believe, because...
Yeah, I think Maggie and Sasha are kind of the two at odds, and Bob is the one kind of holding them together. And when Maggie does storm off, he says, well, we
want to stay together.
Stay together, so we kind of have to go with her. So they follow her, and they are walking down the road, and they find the bus that Glenn left on with a load of people from the prison. They approach the bus. Everybody on the bus is a walker. So Maggie being, and this is a point where we kind of see a more aggressive side of Maggie. She wants to see.
She has to find out if he's in there.
So they open the bus. Worst comes to worst. Too many of them come out of the bus. They end up having to fight a bunch of them. And Maggie gets on the bus, and
she kills somebody at the end. We couldn't see his face, but at the end she starts kind of either a happy cry or a sad cry that Glenn wasn't on the bus. But as far as we know right now, there still could be hope that Glenn is alive somewhere.
Yeah, it was a very cynical laugh, so we're not really sure how to take it, but hopefully we'll find out here in a few short minutes. So we'll get back to you again real soon. Some big stuff happened. We ended up doing 2 commercials just because it was a short span in between the first one, so we said, well, we might as well just keep going. So the first part happens is we see Glenn finally, and big surprise is the fact that he is not on the bus where everybody suspected he was. He was still back at the prison.
Mm-hmm. It looked like he was passed out, and when he got up, he really didn't remember what had happened, and he was yelling for Maggie, but he then soon realized that there was nobody there, and he started to pack up and was about to leave as well.
Smart move on Glenn's part, I believe, grabbing the riot gear. That really helped him in the first part, just getting out. As he's running by, he looks over and he sees somebody alive, locked himself in a cage. Turns out it's one of the people from the governor's group that attacked them. She somehow made it in there, was safe. Goes in there and he basically says, "I need your help." And I forgot totally that Glenn didn't even know that Herschel had been killed by the governor. He was still in the coma, or
He was still weak, so
yeah.
he wasn't really fighting much.
Yep, so he didn't know, and then when this girl that he's never met before says that Herschel dies, you know, he of course is very angry. And I think this is a point where we kind of see Glenn starting to go through a darker side of, you know, he's going through a dark part in his life as well as Maggie. And I think that their emotions kind of collide a lot. Also, the end of the show with the hopeful introduction of 3 new characters we do not know about yet.
So hopefully, they're starting a new group. It looks like they said when they showed the sneak peek to the next episode, they told us that they needed more people. It was just telling Glenn they needed more people, and that I think what they're basically trying to do, they're going to try to take them over, and hopefully they're all leading up to the same place, because maybe they're part of that other group that Maggie is going through as well. So hopefully they all end up in the same place at the end.
Yeah, and you know, again, like we said, this huge central point, so maybe that this is where they all will meet up. Hopefully we'll find out in the next episode. So I guess we'll see you next week. Once again, I'm Carson Eungard.
I'm Chris Habba.
And we will see you next week on the Walking Dead podcast.
Have a good one.